presentation. So with us today, we have Samantha Hinchey, Director of Victim Services for the Arizona Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. Sexual and Domestic Violence, also known as ACES-DV. So through her role with ACES-DV, Samantha supports the statewide helpline specialists that provide a link to resources throughout the state of Arizona. Her areas of expertise include technology misuse, child support services, and of course, the intersection of pets and domestic violence. So in today's webinar, she's going to be discussing the importance of including pets in survivor safety plans. We're so excited to have you with us today, Samantha, and please take it away.
Yay, thank you, Danielle. I appreciate it. First, I wanted to say hi to all my Arizona friends. Thank you for coming to this. For those of you that have come to this before, I thank you for coming again. But just super excited to have you all here. Was really excited to be asked back. This is the second time that I've done a training with RedRover and don't forget the pets. And I just really appreciate them asking me back. I do want to preface this by saying I am not an expert in pets. And so I just have researched a lot and been talking and about this a lot in Arizona for 7 years now. And so please, if there's something that I'm missing here, please feel free to put that in the chat. For those of you that are from pet welfare agencies, you are the experts in things. For those of you that are at the DV shelters that have pets, you are the experts in this. And so please feel free to put whatever you like to add into this presentation. Like if I'm missing something, please add it. I really appreciate it. And I love that this is a meeting so that we can have that open dialogue. So thank you everybody for being here. And I'm going to get started because I normally do this in 90 minutes and we're going to try to get it done in 50. So, all right. So safety planning with pets in mind. That's my email if anybody wants to email me at a later date. And you can also reach out to RedRover, to Danielle, to get my email for any questions. I love talking to folks who want to do more in this area. I've been having conversations with folks around the country. And so I just to talk about what we've been doing here in Arizona. For those of you that are from Arizona, you know how annoying I am about pets. And so I think that's the number one rule when you're starting to do this work with people, is to just be really annoying. And so I just really appreciate you all being here. All right, so our objectives today, we're going to explore the connection of pet abuse and the effects that it can have on animals, review the tenets of safety planning, and discuss how to safety plan with a survivor that has a companion animal. So I just wanted to talk about the connection for those of you that have not come to a training either by me or by someone else that has been doing this work. I just wanted to start off with that connection between the animal and the humans. So there's something called the human-animal bond. It is one that provides both support and unconditional love that survivors may not otherwise receive by others in their life, by other humans in their life. And so it's really important that we recognize that this is something that is important for survivors. In one study, companion animals were a very important source of emotional support for nearly 50% of women in domestic violence shelters. Literature suggests that between 25% and 75% of animals have either been abused or threatened with abuse by people causing harm. And women reported that abusers who also abused pets, in contrast to abusers who did not, were less likely to consider pets as sentient beings or members of the family, and more likely to view pets as property. So sentient beings means that someone, it's something that has feelings and has emotions, even if they can't express those things. And so that's definitely pets, right? So pets cannot tell us exactly how they're feeling, but they do those things in their behaviors. And so it's really important that we recognize that these beings, these animals, cats, dogs, the fish that survivors come with, the donkeys that they have, the chickens, the whatever it is that they're coming with, they are sentient beings and they mean something to that survivor. And I'll be honest with you, I have been talking to RedRover about this for a really long time, basically since we started at ACES DV doing this work, and we are definitely on the path of having pet inclusive services on site at domestic violence shelters. That's something that we feel really strongly about at ACES DV. We recognize that that's not possible for every single area, but it is something that we also want to represent, and just know that we try to be as supportive as we can in having fostering programs and other types of programs here in the state. But we really want to see more shelters on campus for DV and homeless shelters as well. So having that sentient being, having that thing with them that has saved them, that has supported them, that has helped them get through their abuse. And so that both of these, the human and the animal, can heal together is really important to us. So traumatic impact on pets, I just really appreciate this quote. Like people, animals react to trauma in many different ways. How it presents itself in that animal is individual to them, right? So we definitely, as advocates, we definitely know that people do not need the same thing that the next person needs, right? So everyone is treated individually. Everyone starts with their safety where they need it to start. And as advocates, we definitely want to have that conversation. And it's the same when we're talking about people with pets. What does that pet need? Does it just need to be in a safe place with its owner? Does that owner need to be in a safe place with its pet? Does it need to, does that pet need pet behavior uh, uh, work done with them so that they can, because that abuse was so traumatic to that pet as well, that there's been a disintegration of that human animal bond with the pet parent. And so like everyone has to start in its own different, everyone starts safety planning and has to start where they're at. As advocates, we're definitely one of those meet people where they're at. And I think it's the same thing for pets. We want to meet them where they're at as well, because when that pet is healing, that human is healing. And we can't heal, like we have to heal together. So just touching on that physical abuse, just as it does for humans, physical abuse takes an emotional toll on animals. Being hurt physically can also damage the spirit. The most disturbing factor is that pets, or dogs specifically, want to please their humans so badly that they will do almost anything asked of them. Cats, not so much, right? I'm sure there's some cat people in here. Your cat, maybe not so much. My daughter has 2 cats and they don't care. But I have a dog, and they definitely care, and they want to please so much. I'm seeing in the chat, our program focuses on animal emergency and disaster prep, and we include DV as an emergency planning level. Do you have resources to support stronger response to DV victims during disasters? I don't have that right now. I love this question though, but I feel like, don't forget that Pets actually does a lot of this work on disaster, and how to support pets and survivors, and pets and just people in general with disasters. And so Danielle, if you want to pop in here and say anything about that, please go forth. But it's definitely something I haven't looked into that much with disasters specifically, but I feel like I should start. So I appreciate this question a lot, and I'm going to start looking into it. So thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question, Julie. We do have a couple of resources, so I will just go ahead and drop them in the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you, Danielle. So with physical abuse, this means that humans who deliberately hurt pets are taking advantage of their most endearing qualities of love and loyalty, right? So if we take a look at how we treat our pets, how our pets treat us, and just the loyalty that they have for their human, it is imperative, it is important to recognize that they are deliberately hurting this bond that humans have with their pets and with their animals. And I don't want to just say pets too. I want to say animals, because there are people that will not leave because of their cow. Because their cow that's out in the pasture, because their chickens that are out there laying eggs, for their cows, for their donkeys. You know, and so those may not necessarily be pets, but they are a loved being on that land that is owned by that survivor. And so it's really important that we not just talk about pets and the and our fluffy little cutenesses that we have here, but also the other animals that might be within the survivor's life. And like here in Arizona, we have a lot of land. We have a lot of farmland. I live in a rural community, and so there are farms everywhere where I live. And so um, it's definitely something that I've learned to think about over the years as I've been doing this work to make sure that we're talking about animals and pets. Because I've heard from survivors that will not leave without their farm animals. So unfortunately, there is not that much research about emotional abuse because, again, these are sentient beings who cannot speak. And so we cannot research. We can research what physical abuse can do to an animal, but there isn't that much research on emotional abuse. And this is from a pet behaviorist that used to work at Lost Our Home, which is a DV, which is I like to think of it as like a DV shelter for pets. And so these are, they started working with a domestic violence shelter when they opened up, and they've been a partner with them for years and years and years. And they have this cross training, cross taking care of animals um, format, and it's quite lovely. And it's the only one that I've seen that's been like this. So if you have that in your area, please let me know because I just think it's great. But they've been able to do cross training over the years. They've been able to come and take care of pets. But they had for a while this pet behaviorist, Angelina, and she was willing to talk to me about a little bit about this, about the emotional abuse of pets and how we just don't have enough research about it. And then she says most of the time it is emotional abuse that is happening to the pets as they're watching their survivor, that survivor parent get harmed or like be harmed either emotionally, physically, or sexually. And then the pets don't believe they will always be taken care of. So over time, this is what starts to happen. And the bond starts to, like I said before, disintegrate. Oh my gosh. Phil, are you on here right now? I'm so uncomfortable. Okay. Sorry. Phil, I got you on here. So thank you so much for popping that in the chat. FYI, there is no crime of emotional abuse of animals. There's no research because oh, I just lost it because there's no it's the kind of the so for us here in Arizona, emotional abuse really isn't part of our state statute for domestic violence, and it's the same like Phil says that emotional abuse isn't one of those things that it's not a crime. So oh my goodness, there's so many people here. Yes, thank you, Phil, for being here. I'm so nervous now. All right, so this is a quote from a survivor. But there seemed to be a turning point when my abuser began to change his demeanor toward my dog. A time that stands out to me was when my abuser tried to physically assault me by punching me in the face, and to stop him, my dog lunged at his arm in my defense. From that moment forward, the violence toward me and my dog escalated, and ultimately, my dog's behavior seemed to shift from protecting me to becoming reactive or mirroring my abuser's body language and aggression. I think it's really important to remember that survivors, their voices are really they're the reason why we do this work, and so having their voices be part of the work with pets is really important. They love to show their pets off at um, you know, in meetings. They love to talk about their pets and how loved they are. I've met several survivors over the years that refuse to leave because of their pets, as we know, for those of us that have been doing this work for quite a while. And it's just it's a beautiful relationship to see and to have them be able to talk to us about that. So, concern for companion animal safety is persistent. It's a worry for survivors who seek shelter, often impeding their healing and safety. In one study, more than half of abused animals remained in the care of the abusive partner while the survivor was sheltered. And fear and concern over animal custody likely leads to additional stress and emotional conflict for domestic violence victims before, during, and after shelter care. So this is what we're trying to relieve, right? So this is why we're having these conversations. And this has really become a hot topic, pet inclusive services over the years. At more and more conferences that I go to, there's at least one either table. So if there's the tablings, or there's there's a presentation about pets. And so it's really been a phenomenal thing to watch over the years, and to see Phil's voice and Allie's voice and Katie's voice, from these organizations out here doing this work, because they've been doing it for so long. And I just love that it's become much more mainstream, if that's an appropriate way to say. So in one report, 73% of sheltered women found pets to be an important source of emotional comfort, and nearly half continued to worry about their pets while they were in shelter. And then another quote from survivors: my husband would use my attention towards my cat as a means to treat me even more emotionally cruel because he was jealous of her. Now he says I abandoned her and tries to make me feel guilty for choosing to leave, and I could not bring her with me. So these are some of the things that I think, like this one, I think just really pulls at me, because just that emotional abuse for that survivor of not being able to take her supportive animal with her is just really, and that is still, this is years later that she sent this to me, and she still is feeling guilty about it, and she still is having to worry about, she doesn't know what happened to that cat, and still having to worry about it. So it just is, it's important for us to listen to these stories. So I think everybody knows this one. If you've been doing this work, you know this one very well. Up to 40% of domestic violence survivors report they delayed their decision to seek safety and services out of fear for their animal's welfare. And adding a screening question about animal cruelty on a crisis line decreased domestic violence homicides by 80%. This one is the one statistic when I started doing this work that really got to me. It really made me recognize and realize that we have to take into consideration the pets when we're doing DV work and sexual violence work. And we have to take into, and as I've been doing this work and having more conversations with pet welfare agencies and veterinarians, making sure that they're also putting a human question on their intake form. Oh, I love that you added it to your intake. I love that. We have it in ours as well. I love it. We have it in our state standards for domestic violence shelters. I've tried to put it as many places as we can, and our helpline also asks questions. And so I just think that this is a really important piece of that. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about screening and intake questions. So it can be really simple. It can be really easy to do. Do you have a pet or pets? Has anyone you know tried to or has injured or threatened your pet? Has anyone in your home ever killed a pet? Do you have a safe place for your pet if you decide to leave your home? And are you aware that pets are included in an order of protection in Arizona? Obviously, if you're not in Arizona, you can add in if you have an order of protection clause for your state. We do here in Arizona, which I think is lovely, and trying to get the word out that people can, that when advocates are working with survivors getting orders of protection, they can also add in pets. And so that's just a wonderful thing. And I believe that this grows all the time. In the National Link, their newsletter, they'll put something in there when a new state has made it law that orders of protection can include pets. So it's wonderful. So there's more and more states doing this all the time, and it's so lovely to see. All right, so now that I'm done with all of that and I'm off my high horse, let's talk about the basics of safety planning. So what makes us feel safe? Oh, that's awesome. Oklahoma has an option. What makes you feel safe? Oh, thank you, Phil. We now have 40 states that specifically allow pets in protection orders. I knew you were going to have that answer. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. So what makes you all feel safe? If you just want to put it in the chat, you're more than welcome to do that. None of you feel safe? Your dog? Perfect. Thank you, Jessica. Yeah. Anyone else? Money, honesty, my stuffed animals. Leah, I love that so much. Family, Alicia, I'm so happy you're here. My doggies and petting them, my family at home, pets, family, my 80-pound pit. Yeah. Boundaries, family, having a calm environment, family, friends, and pets. I love this. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to tell you some other things that we've asked people, and this is what they've said. So food and water, a job, money, and home, pets, family, friends, the teddy bear, a car, faith, self-confidence, health, being free from harassment, free from intrusion, and free from violence. So these are some of the things that we've heard over the years and heard from survivors about what makes them feel safe. And pets obviously are a big part of this. So for survivors of violence, safety is a broad concept, not one limited to reducing physical violence or a partner's controlling behavior. It's a lot of things. So it is emotional safety, it is safety in someone's physical being, it is safety in oneself, it is safety at home, it is safety outside of the home, it is safety in their faith community and just their living community, it is safety in all things. And so this is what we are talking about. And unfortunately, over the years, you know, we really have put safety planning in the realm of safety planning can only be done when someone's leaving that relationship, and that's just really limiting that survivor and really limiting us from treating them as a whole. And so that's what safety planning does. We want to, or for us as advocates, we want to treat people as a whole, because what safety planning essentially is doing is it's interrupting the path of violence. And so when we think about safety planning of interrupting the path of violence, then we can include all of those things that might be affecting that survivor. So it can include their faith community and how do they get there and how are they supported. It can include having to go to the laundromat that is down the street from the road, but they live in a small town, and on the way to the laundromat, they might see friends and family of their abuser. And so it might include how do they get that? How are they able to safely go to the laundromat in their community? It can include the kids in the home. It can include having an order of protection and still being in the home. It can include having an order of protection and living outside of the home. And so when we think about interrupting the path of violence, that's really what we're talking about with safety planning, and that is a broad concept. So where we start is whatever is the first or most important issue for each victim is the starting point for safety planning advocacy. So if someone's in shelter, let me give you an example. If someone's in shelter and they decide that they're going to go back, which happens quite often. Yes, thank you, Evelyn. Safety planning when preparing to leave, love it. If someone decides to, so they've left and they're in shelter and they're in the safe haven, and you guys are you advocates are doing everything you can, and you're doing all the things, and they've got a pet there with them, and they might have kids there with them, and they might be going into transitional housing, but for some reason they feel the need to go back. Are we going to shame them for wanting to go back when we know that this is a natural phenomenon that happens with survivors? Or are we going to safety plan with them and let them know that if they need to come back to us, that we are still going to be supportive of that choice, right? And so whatever they are working with, whatever their first issue is, that's where we start. So like I said, to that piece of wanting to go to the laundromat, if that's the only thing that they need to safety plan around, then that's where we start. And this is also like by listening and having these conversations around safety planning for where their most important issue is, we're building rapport, which is a huge part of the work, right? Thank you, Kaya. Shame-free zone, of course. Safety plan, and we are here for them whenever. I love that. So we want to make some goals. We want to make some goals with them. We want to do this. We want a safety plan with goals for safety plan goals for survivors and pets. We want to address immediate and long-term safety. So immediate might be just they might just need to sleep. They might just need a bed for the night. They might just need water. They might need their kids to be able to have a safe place to play. They might, immediate like shelters are a crisis. And so whatever they need in that 3, 4, 2, however long they can stay in shelter, months or days, that's that immediate. And then we start working on that long-term safety with them. That looks like housing. It might look like job development. It might look like getting behavior stuff for their dogs so that they can go into transitional housing. It could just we could talk about housing all day long. So it's those type of things. We want to enhance their well-being. We want to improve support, and we want to improve understanding and awareness. And this doesn't mean that they're not aware that they were in a domestic violence relationship, but awareness of like what it can look like, what it could look like, and what is safety planning in the first place. Taking into account not just their needs, but also where that one of the things that I think we sometimes forget to do is ask about the abuser when we're safety planning. Like why are we here? Like what made that person come into shelter or decide to leave at that time? And then what does it look like moving forward? Because again, we're interrupting that path of violence. And so we want to make sure that we are taking into account and we're having conversations where where does this person work, what is their schedule like. Let's take those things into account so that we can safety plan around those things so that person can be as safe as possible. Does anyone have any questions? I feel like I've missed stuff, but Danielle's also doing lots of good work on the thing, so I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. And if I'm not making sense, please let me know too. So all right, so safety planning components. We want to address basic needs like housing, food, transportation, medical attention. I don't think housing is basic anymore. I'm going to be honest with you. Just side note, housing, not basic. But minimize risk and increase protection with somebody. We want to identify support systems and how to access them. And we want to provide education about dynamics of abuse and risk factors moving forward as we're safety planning with them. So basically what a safety plan does is that it takes the survivor's priorities, their risks, their circumstances, and their decisions. And so when we're talking about circumstances and risks, when we're safety planning, we're treating people as a whole. And so we want to take into account their circumstances. So do they have a pet? Do they have kids? Do they have both? Are they caring for an ailing parent or a grandparent? Do they have a child, or do they themselves have a disability? Taking in all those circumstances have to be part of that. And then their decisions, where they start, is the most important thing. Plus advocate resources. So our information, our analysis, and our implementation of support or help. So someone needs something from us. That's our advocacy, and that's what we're doing. So survivors priorities plus advocate resources equals a strong, comprehensive safety plan. Easy peasy, right? All right, so leaving can mean a lot of things though. So it's not an end all be all when we're asking people to leave. And some people are safer when they leave, and some people are safer when they stay. And so leaving can mean a lot of things, and it can make it really difficult. So it can mean an escalation of violence. It can mean a loss of a home, losing support of family and friends, a loss of income, loss of immigration status, the uncertainty of the children, losing a job, losing the loss of community support, losing health insurance, more danger for that person, and the loss of a pet. So there's a lot of things that go into someone leaving. And yet we have this thought process that leaving is always going to be safer for that person. And really, it's not always, because leaving should always be offered, but never be the purpose of the safety plan. Right? All right, so let's get into it a little bit with the pets. So when safety planning, we want to assess and respond. So this is for advocates that are doing safety planning with people. We want to assess and respond. We want to take a step back. We want to breathe, and we want to understand the current situation. We want to assess for multiple intervention and supportive options. We need to be aware of our tone. We need to make sure that we are speaking in low and even tones, that we are calm, that we are serious and concerned, that we are not making it into something bigger than that survivor is ready for. We want to make sure that we are compassionate, that we are empathetic. We want to respond in a non-judgmental manner and avoid speaking too slow or too fast. So we want to practice listening, because listening is the greatest thing that we can ever do as advocates, right? Like, I know you guys know this, but listening is our most effective tool as advocates. We want to engage in active listening. We want to listen with empathy. We want to be patient, and we want to spend more time listening than speaking. Sometimes it takes us a moment, and I think that the spend more time listening than speaking, like, it makes me look back up to the front, to the top of the slide, and look at the step back, breathe, and understand the current situation. So those two go hand in hand. Leaving is a process. It's not an event. Most people have to plan to leave, which is why we call it safety planning. And so it takes a while. It takes a while, and survivors are so good at safety planning already. And that's one of the things when we're safety planning, we usually want to ask them, what have you already tried? You know, before we start giving them all of these different things that we can do together, we should ask them, what have you already tried? What worked? What didn't? Because they've already been safety planning. If they're there and they're sitting in front of you and they have left, what have they already tried? While not optimal, would a place to foster their pet be helpful if the shelter doesn't have it? Of course, of course. That's what I apologize if I went off on my high horse, Buck. I appreciate this question. Yeah, I think that I think for me in my brain, I think if we can have homeless and pet welfare, or homeless and DV shelters that have on-site pet shelters, beautiful, phenomenal. But I think to have that backup, because we know that there's so many survivors in need right now, I think that having that would be so great. So to me, optimal would be DV shelters, homeless shelters, or unhoused. They should, if they can do it, if they have the capacity to do that, then they should do that. But we can also build, a oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. We can also build a foster system within that community, because there needs to be a backup. And if you don't have capacity to do those things, then the next best is to be able to have, have that foster system in place. And not only that, but having built community around with veterinarians that are willing to give low to no cost, for vaccinations and for vet needs, and also having pet welfare agencies be a partner with everybody. So I think someone just put in here about MOUs. Like, having MOUs in your community is such a great thing, and just building partnerships. That's what we've been trying to do here in Arizona at the coalition. That's a big part of our work, is talking to people and trying to build conversations with the pet welfare agencies and the DV shelters, so they can work together and start having those conversations. So I love this. I don't know why some of you are here. You're already doing such amazing work. I'm so happy to see all of this in the chat. It's so amazing. So just a reminder, so going back to my slide, leaving is a process, not an event. It's important to remember that violence can escalate when someone is planning to leave or is actively leaving an abusive relationship. I know I've seen over the years videos that have come out when people have been leaving and someone has videoed, or it has been taken on the ring, or video outside of the pet being abused as someone is trying to leave, or they have an order of protection in place and that pet being harmed because of this. And so this is an escalated thing that can happen when someone is choosing to leave. So if planning to stay, because we don't want to leave out that conversation. So if someone's planning to stay, we want to keep emergency supplies for their pet in case their abuser withholds money or resources. We want to keep the phone number of the nearest 24-hour emergency veterinary clinic. And we want to encourage them to establish ownership of the pet by creating a paper trail. And what I mean by this is making sure that there are receipts for food, or veterinary bills or boarding, any of that in that survivor's name. So starting to build that paper trail, because I know I've gotten calls over the years. I know that there are people on here that have gotten calls over the years for from survivors that are being subpoenaed to court to go appear in court because that the abuser is trying to get the animal back to them to use the court system to abuse that survivor. And so we want to make sure that there is a paper trail established so that those survivors can go to court with the knowledge that that pet is theirs and that they came to that relationship with their pet as well, if that's the case. So if they're planning to leave, we want to pack a bag for the pets that includes food, medicine. If they're on an order of protection, we want to make sure we're supporting with that. Documents of ownership, receipts from adoption or purchase of pets, license to establish ownership, receipts for animal purchases. Health documents like from the veterinarian or vaccination records, a leash, ID and rabies tags if a dog or cat. These will also help establish ownership, a carrier, toys, and bedding. And then if they must leave without their pet, remember to leave enough food, fresh bedding, litter, etc. So just in case they cannot leave with their pet, we want to make sure that we're supporting them in the safety planning, that they're leaving enough of those things in hopes that abuser takes care of that pet while they're not there. We want to obtain safe emergency shelter for pets somewhere that won't be disclosed to their abuser. So this is where reaching out to pet welfare agencies is really important. You know, do they have a separate section for if they're working with DV shelters? Do they have a separate section in their agency for DV pets? You know, number one, so that they are not going to be adopted at all, and number two, so that those pets are safe. So that they don't have abusers coming into those locations to come and search for those pets. So maybe a separate entrance to that pet welfare agency that for those pet advocates that are working with those DV animals, that they have a separate entrance so that they can take care of them, walk them in a separate place. Do they have like a purple or specific color for their collar while they're in shelter, and then just making sure. And one of the biggest things that I've noticed with pet welfare agencies is that they are really concerned about the safety of their staff, which is totally understandable. And so having conversations with them about what this can look like, because we signed up for this work, right? So a lot of us signed up to work in domestic and sexual violence, and we know that there's a level of dangerousness that is part of the work. We're not underwater basket weaving here. We're helping to keep people safe while they're trying to find housing and orders of protection and divorces and all of those things to make sure that they're safe. And so we've signed up for this. But pet welfare agencies didn't sign up for that necessarily, and yet this work it's combined. This work is attached to each other to make sure that the survivors are safe and their pets are safe. And so having a conversation with them about what safety can look like for that pet welfare agency is really important. So we want to contact hotels and motels outside their immediate area to find out if they accept pets. And so we want to encourage people to ask about any restrictions on number, size, and species. We want to inquire if a no pet policy would be waived in an emergency. and keep a list of animal-friendly places handy and call ahead for reservations as soon as they think they might have to leave the home. And so what I've done for you all, and if I'm missing one, I apologize, but I wanted to have on here pet identify or help identify pet-friendly lodgings. And so you can go on here and look for places that we can start having conversations with these organizations and talking to them and making sure, oh, good, Motel 6 of pets accepts pets. That's awesome. And making sure that they can, is their list up to date? Can we take the, can we use this for survivors? I know that in a very tiny, tiny town here in Arizona, there's quite a few casinos that are across the river, and they have an advocate in this small area that has basically gone to all of these casinos and asked them, like, if we have an emergency and we need to house somebody here, can we house them with their pet in your casino? And the casinos have all said yes. And I think that's amazing. Like what amazing work on that advocate's part to go out and talk to these casinos and see if they're willing to partner with this domestic violence agency in this tiny small town. I think that's amazing. All right. So if they have left, please consider keeping pets indoors if possible. Like this is the things that we want to ask them. Like if they're not in a DV shelter that is gated or hidden, or and hopefully there's a walking path within that shelter if they have pets, or there's some place for those pets to play and to roam, would be, just lovely, but like not taking them out onto the street if possible. Not letting the pet outside alone, picking a safe route and time to walk your pet, not exercising or walking the pet alone, and changing your veterinarian if possible, especially if both the abuser and the survivor parent, pet parent have gone to these places together with that pet. And then changing the microchip registration. We definitely don't want to change it to the domestic violence shelter, just because it's usually temporary housing. And so if there's a safe place that person can put on the microchip, that's a really great thing that they can do. Well, thank you for coming, Andrea. We appreciate you for coming. All right, so emotional safety planning, because it's a lot of emotions that go into this, right? And so having this conversation with people can be a lot, especially if people have had to leave their pet. It's emotional. And a lot of people, like it said before, that 40% won't leave their pet. I mean, I know that there are people on here and people that I've talked to that have lived in their cars with their pet. And I definitely would be that person. If I have to leave, I'm going to live in my car with my pet until I can find safe shelter. And so that can be really emotional. And so we want to make sure that we're emotionally safety planning with people, not just doing that physical safety plan with them. So emotional safety can look different for different people, just because everyone's trauma is super different. And the goal of emotional safety planning is the same developing strategies and coping mechanisms to help survivors accept themselves, their feelings, and their choices while dealing with abuse. And we want to help survivors emotionally plan. We want to build their support system. If it's safe, help them reach out to trusted friends or family, which it isn't always safe. And so making sure that we're talking to them and seeing what that route looks like for them. We want to think small, achievable goals. We want to explore with survivors about being gentle and patient with themselves and work at a pace that feels doable for them and their pets. Want to create their own happy place. When living with abuse, it can be helpful to carve out a physical space for them and their pets to heal, recharge, and feel safe. I know that at one shelter here in Arizona, they have it's built in, it's in Maricopa County, and it's built into their shelter. They have rooms, and then they have a separate place that has like crates for animals. And then they have a separate room outside of there, which is usually like where the fish or the reptiles are kept. And there's a couch in there for those animals that are used to like snuggling with their pet parent on the couch. And um and it's it's a very nice thing to go in and see that they have this area, that they have a chair and they have a couch for the pets to snuggle with their, I think there's even a TV in that location. And so it's just a beautiful thing to see. And so they've created this happy place for that pet parent and their pets. Tell them that they deserve to be safe, because everyone deserves to be safe. Their kids deserve to be safe and their pets deserve to be safe. They are important, strong, and special. Remind them of that. There's a lot of stuff going on here in the chat with Arizona. Sherry, you've exhausted all the vets, animal rescues in Cochise County. Sherry, I'm gonna talk to you about that later, just because there's one vet office that I've been working with a little bit. So like, let's talk about that later, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, Sherry, of course. All right, so just to end us on some resources, community collaboration, always important. This work is if you're starting to do this work, it is really important to remember that community collaboration is like the key. So like, we're trying to build community around survivors. We want to have conversations, we want to have MOUs, we want to bring awareness, we want to have agreements with vet organizations. We want to have conversations with pet welfare agencies and DV shelters. And then, if you have capacity, to move into having conversations with homeless organizations. We've done trainings with homeless organizations here in Arizona about pets, because a large population of the homeless community is domestic violence survivors, and some of them are coming with their pets. And so it's important that we collaborate, but sometimes it's out of our scope and it's out of our work. But it's important to keep those things in mind, that the more people we can have at the table, the better off those survivors and those pets are going to be. And so I'll be honest with you, if I could have anything, it would have like a task force for the state of Arizona on people and pets, bringing all of those people together, and we meet quarterly and we have this conversation and we share resources. And I know there's another organization here that wants to do that. And so I'm hoping we can partner and like get that going, because I just think that would be such a beautiful thing in our state. And I think we're ready for it, because I've been so annoying with the DV shelters over the years. Anyway, so community collaboration, find out who's doing the work with people and pets, reach out to pet welfare agencies and veterinarians, find out if there are partnerships with community stakeholders, and do awareness events and fundraisers. Yay, Jacqueline, I love it. I'll tell you what, I have probably spent the first 18 months of this work just researching. When I first started doing this in 2018, just researching and bringing awareness, talking to everyone I possibly could, putting one slide about pets in every training I've done over the years. It's that important, in my opinion. And so but it's really slow moving. It is a really slow moving thing, because especially for like DV shelters, because there's a lot going on. We need funding, VOCA, like hashtag Save VOCA, like all of those things are happening right now. And so, but the more we talk about it and the more that we bring it into people's minds, the more likely they are willing to have this conversation and talk about it. And one of the very first things that I learned from Katie at RedRover is that people are more likely to, and this is a very unfortunate byproduct of, doing DV work and pet work, is that people are more willing to have that conversation about pets than they are about humans. And they're more willing to give money, because everybody loves pets, but not everybody loves people. And so, a large portion of society loves pets, not everyone, but a large portion. And so building awareness and having fundraisers, people want to give money when we're doing people and pets work. They do. They want to give their money. And so having awareness events, going and tabling at events that are focused on pets. Here in Arizona, we do something super cute called Barktoberfest. How cute is that name? And we've gone and tabled there and we've talked to people. Just anything that can get it out there that we are doing this work is really important. But still making sure that we're doing it safely, because it is such a it's such an interesting intersection of the work. So here I have some phone numbers and some emails on here. So us at Arizona Coalition, if you're a coalition and you want to start doing this work, please reach out to me. Like I love having this conversation. I will send you assessments that we've done in the past. We can talk about anything. And I love talking to people about this. The National DV Hotline, well, some of you don't need this, but the Maricopa County DV line for emergency shelter. Just so you know, that DV line for emergency shelter does ask the pets question when people are coming into shelter. And so that was one thing that we wanted to make sure that we did, along with the statewide helpline. And then RedRover, of course, the national link. Thank you, Phil, for being here. I love this so much. Our website, thank you. And then PetSmart Charities and Animal Welfare Institute, which is where I got a lot of this work from, because they've done a lot around safety planning. So I appreciate it. And with that, we are done. Does anyone have any questions for me? You want to unmute anything? Yeah, so I sent, just so you guys know, I sent Danielle the PDF of the PowerPoint so you guys have it. I also sent, we made a shoe card. How fun is that? So a little informational card in Arizona, we made that and I sent that. So if anybody wants that, you are more than welcome to, like, I hope Danielle sends that out for everyone. The script is really small because our printing was, they didn't listen, but it's really good. On one side, it's for survivors, and on the other side, it's for veterinarians. So it's just a really good resource. Okay, so what was your biggest obstacle in getting shelters involved? Space liability. Yeah, so first was getting them to listen to me, that this was important. So there's that. I'll be honest with you, the majority of the shelters recognize that this is important work and that they need to do it. But I think that the doing the work and then the funding piece of it, funding always, right? Funding always is really part of it. And then getting staff involved, because some people did not grow up with pets. Some people grew up in communities where pets were just something that were just outside. Allergies, but I think space and funding are the two biggest things that everyone needs help with. And then insurance. Yeah, liability. Exactly. Thank you, Julie. Liability is a big one, because you have to, your insurance for the DV shelter has to approve the animals. And so, you know, that's one of the things. And I think too, it's a recognition that you don't have to start huge. You can start with just cats. One cat, just one cat, and see how it goes. And then if you like it and it doesn't, and everyone's happy, you go ahead, 2 cats. And then maybe a little dog. And something you can start small. You can start as small as you want. Okay, so Leah asks, how do you in a shelter setting balance respect and survivors feeling safer when their pets and survivors remain? So in some of the shelters that we've talked to, first of all, everyone deserves to be safe. So everyone deserves to bring their pets with them to shelter. Making sure that there's, usually what I've seen is like making sure there's a separate area for people and their pets, like a walking path. A lot of the shelters have like policies for pets. And so the policy is they'll have one for the pet owner and then they have one for people that don't have pets. And it's kind of like a, please don't pet the pet if it's not yours. Please don't pet the animal on campus if it's not yours. And I've seen people do where you can't come within 10 feet of the animal. I think that one is a little bit hard. I think dogs are harder, in my opinion, and please somebody jump in here and tell me if I'm wrong. But I think that dogs are harder because they are such, they want to be around other animals most of the time, but also there's a trauma piece. So do they? And so that's the thing that you have to balance with that piece of it. I think it's just talking to your pets, bringing in that. This is where the partnership with a pet welfare agency really comes in handy, inviting them into that DV shelter to talk to the staff so that they can have a better understanding of how pets' minds work, how if a pet is displaying this behavior, this is what this means, and just having that MOU with another pet welfare agency so that you can do cross collaboration with them and cross training. What about complaints of other survivors who not taking care of their pets? Yeah, so I would love to hear what other people are putting in here because I've heard so many different things. I think, oh man, let me just go through because I think that this is security becomes an issue for county municipal. How do you have a conversation with that survivor without offending or triggering the survivors, or feed them without permission from the owner? So yeah, it's just like we have to have permission from the owner. I think this is where policies and procedures come in. And let me be honest with you, I don't love a policy. Like I'm here for voluntary services every day of the week. And so the least amount of policies we can have, but when it comes to pets and people, I think there needs to be a little bit more policy around that so that people are not out here feeding other people's animals. It's also not necessarily up to shelter staff to take care of those animals. And I think that's one of the things that's been a hurdle is because when a shelter announces that they want to start doing pet work or pet inclusive work and the animals will start being on it, like the staff is fearful that they're going to have to like shirk their duties with the humans to start doing pet work. And I think this is where funding comes in to make sure that we can fund someone, or the MOUs with a pet welfare agency come in. But I think that policies and procedures are necessary for this, but also we want to make sure that they're not taking away from voluntary services. And so I have a bunch of policies that shelters have sent me over the years. And so I'd be happy to have more of a conversation to show you what those look like with their permission. So yeah. Oh, I'm here for a few minutes if people are wanting to stay on. Like I don't have a hard stop at noon, but I know that some people do, and I really appreciate all of you being here. For those that cannot stay, thank you so much.
Just a quick last announcement for folks that are going to hop off. If you didn't see my couple of previous announcements, in order to make sure that you do get a link to the slides of Samantha's wonderful presentation and a link to the recording, please do make sure that your display name in Zoom matches the name you registered with so that we can mark you as attended and you'll get the right email. And if you didn't register for today's presentation, that's absolutely fine. We're so happy you were able to join us. Just quickly send me a direct message with your first and last name and your email address. And again, that's just to make sure we have proper attendance and to ensure that you get the right follow-up email with the links to all the good stuff.
Thank you, Danielle. Really quickly, I wanted to talk about what Victoria put in. There are leash sleeves that say "Do not pet" or "Caution." 100%, I love that. In all honesty, that is something that we should put onto our donation list that we have online. If you're at a DV shelter or a shelter somewhere, having that on there saying that that's something that is a donation that's needed, because we don't want to assume that survivors are coming with the funds or the means to be able to get those things. And so I love that so much. I think that's such a great piece of it to go along with the policies of whatever those policies are. But like, we want to make sure that we can support survivors in that way too. So putting it on your donation list is a really good idea. Did someone want to say something?
Yeah, get in touch with me. Any of you who would be interested, that is the type of donation that we would be very happy to fund.
Awesome.
Starting with you as a thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you so much.
So this is Julie with the Halter Project. Just get in touch with me.
Yes, please. Like, let me put my email in the chat too, just so you guys have it again. I would love to. Thank you so much you guys are amazing. This is why I love doing this work, because it is just Like, it's just such a beautiful community.
So if I would email you asking if you could share some of those policies,
Mhm.
that would be very helpful because we're just kind of getting started. So
Yeah, I would love to. And we can even have a chat about it, and I can go through them and just like, this is what this shelter did, and this is what this
Ah.
shelter did. I'm more than happy to meet with you all.
yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Wonderful.
Sam. Also, Stephanie, we do, as you're a little bit closer to really starting your pet friendly journey at your
Yeah.
shelter, you have a one-on-one coaching program through our Don't Forget the Pets project. Where we are just here to support you every step of the way, and help advise you everything from kind of crafting policies and procedures together to really taking a look at your physical space. I know there were a lot of concerns in the chat about what about people with allergies? What about people who are afraid of animals? The two most important things from our perspective are physical space, like separation, and good policies in place. And so we can look at your physical
Right.
space, give you advice on things like what are the best paths of travel for dogs to take when they do need to go out for a potty break, so we can keep them separated from the people that maybe don't want to be around dogs. So definitely
Right.
check or don't forget the pets.org
Okay.
website.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
I honestly, like, if I have a question about anything, I ask Katie from RedRover. Like, they are such a wealth of knowledge, and I just so appreciate everything that I've learned from them. And so, yes, please utilize that. Um, it's amazing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Great information. Thank you so much for this.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Evelyn, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I'm grateful for everything that you said, because I know that in our strategic plan as an agency, we're contemplating actually perhaps doing having a kennel on property, but that's clearly long term. It's a 5-year strategic plan, but anything that can help us to know, because we're not about reinventing the wheel, and definitely looking at other agencies that have done it, you know, just looking at samples that have already been successful will be very helpful for us. So I would appreciate it being placed on those emails. So when those planning committees start, at least we can be equipped with the info up.
That's
And
awesome.
thank you. This was a great training.
Thank you very much. I also wanted to say that there is a Don't Forget the Pets training coming up. Danielle, I'm sure you can tell the date, but it's coming up. It's phenomenal. It's so good. And there's so many examples of what this can look like in DV shelters that they give, that Katie and Bryn give. It is so good. And so please, please, please sign up for that and go to it. And it's one of the first things we did in Arizona. Was I contacted Katie and she was like, well, we do this training. And I was like, please come to Arizona. I have funding to pay for you to come. And that's how we got started. And we had them come and do this 1-day training at a DV shelter, because they have a big training room at the shelter, and it was phenomenal. And so please, if you're starting to do this work or you need support, please come to that training, because it is so good and you learn so much. And then if you need anything else, you can come to me. I did want to answer this one question here: how best to support with veterinarians. Assist with this. They've been a hard nut to crack. I'm gonna be real honest. They've been a hard nut to crack for me. And so one of the things that we did one year was first of all, there's a national shortage. So if you didn't know that, there's a national shortage with veterinarians and pet behaviorists across the country. Here in Arizona, we have pet welfare agencies like the large SPCAs that have like had to go to Mexico and get people to come and be veterinarians here. We've had organizations that have had to go to Canada and get people to come here to the States. And so there's a huge shortage. There's a lot of veterinarians, at least in Arizona, that retired during this time.
Yeah, I think it's the same kind of everywhere that they're saying. I have heard that veterinarians have the highest risk of
Suicide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is really sad. And I'm in pet rescue. I'm a foster for a rescue, and we have trouble with veterinarians that,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of them don't want to get involved in any kind of anything, you
The
know.
problem is like, and I don't know how it is in your state, Stephanie, but here in Arizona, like if there's abuse of that animal, like they're mandatory reporters. And so like
Yeah.
that's the thing that I try to tell people is that like they really should be asking if they do nothing else, they should have a human question about their safety on their intake.
Yes.
And then like look the dog over or the cat over, the animal, whatever it might be. But like at the very least, there should be a question about human safety,
Right.
just so that we're cross collaborating, and so we're getting to that. But like here in Arizona, they're mandatory reporters if there's any type of animal abuse when an animal comes in, and so like, and we know that animal abuse is a red flag, and it's like the tip of the iceberg, and there's so much poly victimization happening underneath all of that that like it
Yes.
really, that's what I try to talk to them about. So yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, it's a rough thing to do, but
Yeah.
yeah. Mandy, if you want to reach out to me, you're more than welcome, and we can totally talk about it. I actually have like a flyer for veterinarians at the pet welfare agencies talking about like how they can be involved and what like some of that, and I can send that to you. I'd be more than happy to do that. Yeah. This is amazing. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, this really is a great group. Thank you everyone so much who
Yep.
attended.
Thank
And
you.
quite a few requests for our next virtual workshop that Sam was referring to. That is the one on August 13th. I dropped the link in the chat to our upcoming events page so you can see that event as well as all of our upcoming guest presentations. Earlier in her presentation, Sam also mentioned an organization in Arizona called Lost Our Home Pet Rescue. They are actually going to be doing a guest presentation for us as well next month. So if you wanted to check that one out, you can register on our upcoming events page. And then I've seen a few requests for my email address. I'm going to drop that in the chat again, just so everyone has it. And then Sam, I believe your email address is in your slide deck. Is that right?
Yeah, it's on the very first page, and I also put it in the chat.
Awesome. So those slides are going to get sent out in a follow-up email, probably sometime next week. So keep your eyes out for that. And then I do know we had lots of folks, I know quite a few people have hopped off. We did have lots of folks in the chat earlier saying that they'd be happy to share things like MOUs or sample documents.
Love it.
If those folks are still on and you would like to share any documents like that, any MOUs, contracts, policies, in our Don't Forget the Pets document library. It's basically just a space that sort of shelters who are just starting their pet-friendly journey can go to find sample documents and sample, contracts, so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you are already up and running and pet-friendly and you'd like to share some of the documents that you use with other shelters, please shoot me an email. We'd love to add them there in our document library. And if you are just starting and you're looking for those things, we already have a fairly good collection, so definitely check it out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with me and with Danielle with RedRover. It's so great. And thank you, Danielle, for inviting me to come back. And I hope I get to again with some random thing to talk about again.
My goodness. Thank you so much for joining us, Samantha. You will definitely be called on again.
Thank you.
Probably in just a few months.
Thank you.
Over. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Oh, Nina, where are the sample documents located? So if you go to our website, don'tforgetthepets.org, under our resources tab, you'll see a link to our document library. It's called the document library, and that's where you'll find those sample documents. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. A huge thank you once again to Samantha for joining us. You always bring such incredibly valuable information every time you come. This was our most well-attended event we've had yet. And it's very obvious as to why you bring so much knowledge and so many resources. And we're just so lucky to have you. So thank you again to Samantha, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.